Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters, and Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years. Hi, and welcome to Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community. I'm Mary Kate Karr-Petras, and I'm here today with prolific author, teacher, designer Donna Lynn Thomas. Welcome, Donna.
Hi.
This isn't your first time on the QN set.
No,
you've been with us before.
It's nice to be back.
Good. Well, you're here today to talk to us about your fabric recipes. This is the first of a two-part episode, actually. Fabric recipes, which is your technique, approach, philosophy to choosing fabrics for a quilt, right?
Yes.
I'm really interested to hear about this.
Okay, well, let's go take a look at the beginning. This is the very first quilt that I made that helped me put this concept together.
Okay.
I had seen a Birds in the Air quilt in a book on historic quilts. It was an antique, and but it was a traditional scrappy quilt. Every little piece was a different print, which I love those quilts, but I do not have the patience to sit and sort my fabric by darks, mediums, and lights. I'd be committing hara-kiri or running around with my hair on fire if I had to do that. But I really wanted to make the quilt. So I thought of a different way of doing this, of getting to use lots of fabrics, but not having to sort and not having to cut all those individual little triangles and pieces.
Right.
So I decided to make one block from one print, one dark print and one light print. And in that way, I really got to showcase the prints. They didn't get lost in the muddle of all the different little prints. And I didn't have to worry about a lot of prints at any one time, just those two prints. But with making Birds in the Air, we have 3 triangles, and I'm a rotary cutter machine piecer, so this would leave me with leftovers. So if I cut squares in half and made half-square triangles, I'd have a leftover. So it dawned on me I could make 2. So if I made 2 blocks, I'd need 6 triangles, means 3 squares, and I'd use both of these half-square triangles.
Right.
So that's where I came up with the idea of doing a pair of blocks at a time. So this whole quilt was made over a period of time. I didn't just sit down and pull all my fabrics and make all my blocks.
Quilt.
Nope.
Okay.
This was built as I found a combination I like, I'd make a pair of blocks. Find another pair of fabrics I'd like, I'd make another pair of blocks. At the time, I was living in Germany and I was teaching in a German quilt shop, and I was part of a French and German patchwork, quilt group. And so one day, one of my friends, Marie Teresa, came in with her daughter Arlie's cotton pinafores. And she tore them to pieces. We all got pieces of those cotton pinafores. So here's Arlie's pinafore in a little block.
How
so there's
sweet.
a mate for it somewhere. And this piece came from France, from another friend. So it's a great way to use up small pieces of fabric, and nowadays pre-cuts and things like that.
Right.
In fact, this is a hand-painted fabric from back in the 80s, early, mid-80s. And it was like $16 for a piece this big back then. But I got 2 blocks out of it.
Right.
So this is what I would call a rainbow recipe, which was the first way that I started doing this. It's a rainbow of colors, whatever suited me that day. And the benefit was I'd never had to cut an entire quilt at a time. I didn't have to plan an entire quilt at a time. I didn't have to buy. I didn't have to do anything. Didn't have to sew it. I just a pair of blocks at a time. Quilt grew in the corner. And in fact, it's the size it is because I had a manuscript deadline.
Otherwise, you might have
I could have made it bigger.
King size or
yeah,
something.
Yeah, you just keep making blocks. In fact, this was the cover quilt on my book, Shortcuts to the Top. So this is an older quilt. This is from probably early 90s.
Okay.
But I've been doing this ever since, and I have developed other recipes that I use besides just the rainbow recipe. But let's take a look at some other rainbow recipe quilts. This one is called Candy Dots, and it's the cover of my book, Patchwork Palette, which includes all the information on all these different recipes. And you can see it's a rainbow of color.
It's beautiful.
And again, this was done a pair of blocks at a time. Now, I don't always do a pair of blocks. Sometimes I'll do 1 block at a time if it's a smaller quilt. Sometimes if it's a really big quilt with small blocks, 5, 8, 10 blocks at a time. I have one quilt that's 100 blocks in it, and I did 10 sets of 10. So, but again, I'm just working with small, bits of sewing at a time.
Okay.
But you can see the pairs here. And it's just so much fun to do. And again, it was just whatever suited me that day. Oh, I love this. You know, this was actually part of a collection we'd bought for my son and daughter-in-law when they got married, and had all the hearts and everything. So this was a little bit left over from the things we made for the reception. So that was fun putting in here. And just, you know, you can pull fabrics from 10 years ago and whatever you have in your stash, and it's just great. And again, pre-cuts work really, really well for things like this.
It still has a not a uniformity to it, but it really hangs together so well when you know that you're going to make a block to fit in with blocks you've already made. You're still sticking to
There's a happy
philosophy.
theme.
Okay.
A happy theme.
There you go.
Okay, and that the birds in the air is more of a traditional theme.
Okay.
And this is a happy theme. So yes, I do there is that kind of aspect that pulls it together. You know.
But it's happy. I mean,
Happy.
that's your
Yeah,
theme.
that was the
so
theme.
if
Was
a fabric
happy.
strikes you as happy, then I
It
love
goes in here.
That's
Yep.
great.
And it doesn't matter whether it's old or not. I mean, this is I don't know if that's a reproduction, but this is a more contemporary.
Yeah.
So I don't worry about mixing batiks and reproductions and contemporary prints together. It just, you know, has to work together. You know, just kind of feel good in that combination. So that's Candy Dots.
Very nice.
Good. And again, so you can see a theme with this, which is more traditional
Right.
reproduction. In fact, this is Barbara Brackman's modernist border print, but that's the only piece I have in here that came from that collection. The rest of these are layer cakes, and that's why this is called checker cakes, because it makes kind of a checkerboard, and it's just 10-inch pieces of fabric right side together. You cut strips, sew them into strip sets, cut them into segments, and sew them together. I mean, even the sashings are, you know, all kinds of neutrals, but these are all kinds of colors. You know, I have everything, you know, I have blues and plums and reds and tans and little peaches and everything that you can think of. That, and again, I did kind of coordinate with the border print, but lots of times I do the center, and I'm struggling to find a border print that goes with it later because I don't necessarily start that way.
Did you start out with a sketch of what the quilt was going to be in terms of placement, measurements, these center triangles? No.
No, I just knew this block. I had
Okay.
done the 10-inch square thing, and I thought that was really fun, so I made the blocks and then just kind of winged it from there. But many times I will have an array of prints out. I mean, I'll have like 40 or 50. I've got one going right now with all these things that I just think look gorgeous together. And then I'll try to figure out a quilt to make with them. So, and I don't necessarily have anything like this to start with. It's just something sparks my interest, and I start pulling things to go with it. And so sometimes the fabric inspires the quilt, not the other way around.
I see. Did you have a theme for this one?
No, once I had this, yes.
Okay.
Then it did kind of garner, you know, pull it together, because I had done this also in some. I have some bright pastels and happy things. I will probably do another one of those with this. So again, and this one again, you can see happy.
Yes,
It's just
indeed.
happy.
Yes,
and
indeed.
it's so much fun. This is so easy to do. This is the block right here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's 4 patches with 2 half-square triangles in the corner.
Okay.
And they go together really fast, and you probably can't really see it really well, but each block has they're done a pair at a time, but the white-on-white background changes as well. So this is just one print and a white-on-white. And so there's tons of white-on-white prints in here. All this beautiful thread color in the quilting kind of hides that.
Yeah.
But before it was quilted, you could really see that all the different white-on-whites changed as well. And there's no border. You know, this, you could make this as big as you want just by making more pairs of quilts. And again, you still get to do all your strip piecing and all your rotary cutting techniques. You're not working with individual little triangles and pieces here and there. So, and they all get to shine in their own block, which I really like. This one is so much fun.
It's
I
lovely.
like this one.
It's really happy.
Checkerboard fans. So, and then here is Party Poppers, and this one is a rainbow recipe, but I kind of stuck within certain colors. So you can do that with certain color. You know, I stuck with. I have 4 purple blocks. 2 of them are from the same set of prints, and the other 2 are a different set of prints, but they're still purples. But all the backgrounds change. All these accent prints change. So I have turquoises, golds, purples, greens, and kind of reds and peaches and oranges. And so again, it's all just a lot of different colors, but I organized it by doing the colors in bands across the diagonal. And of course, the piece border came from all kinds of leftovers. There's a lot of sew and flip in this, and so it was done with this accent and this piece triangle here. So the accent here and the background print here, the leftovers I trimmed up into half square triangles, and that's where the border, the sawtooth border, came from. So I It was just kind of made as I made the blocks. So again, you could just make this bigger by, making more blocks, and you don't have to pay attention to this kind of color order that I added to it, and just throw everything in under the sun. And it's just a fun way to work.
It is. How did you make this over the course of a few years? Are these blocks that grew
No,
organically, or?
this was probably a couple months.
Okay.
When I'd find a batik, these are all batiks, and I don't usually do like all batik quilts and I mix it all up together. But as I was finding combinations that I liked of the dark and medium, then I would, find the accent that I thought would work with it. And I may or may not have had it in my stash. I might have had to go look for it, but sometimes the search is half the fun.
Yeah, that's not a problem for most of us.
No, not an issue. You just, maybe that'll work, or maybe that one work, and you buy 12 and you use one.
Exactly. But then you have them left. Then
that's right.
In all seriousness, then you have them for the next time. You have a theme in mind, and you've already got fabrics in a certain color family, and you've got your go-to stash for that.
Well, I have entire cabinets devoted to color family. So.
Do you?
Yeah.
And that's how you sort them. You don't sort them, as you said. You're not into sorting by value or choosing fabric by value.
No.
So a rainbow recipe then is a quilt that incorporates a broad spectrum of
everything
colors,
under the sun.
everything under the sun.
Yeah. So, and it's a fun way to work. It's very, I think it's very freeing because you really can use everything you've got, and you don't have to worry about having yardages of anything.
Right.
Right.
And if somebody picks up a pattern that they find in a book or a magazine or online, it's a good way to maybe think differently. Because when we write a pattern, we, who write patterns, we are describing the quilt in front of us.
Right.
So we're going to direct you to these ranges of values or these types of colors, but you're not beholden to that.
No. Well, you have to do that, or you can't identify the usage in the photo that the people are looking at.
Exactly.
But you want people to go and experience different things. And in fact, in Patchwork Palette, every pattern in there has two completely different versions of each quilt.
That's so helpful, I think, to really help see. It brings out different patterns, different rhythms almost in the way that the blocks fit together.
And completely different looks. Like Candy Dots, its alternate is blues and burgundies with traditional blues, and looks completely different. There's one we're going to see a little bit later that I will tell you about its evil twin later.
Well, she's talking about later, and we're going to be shooting a second part of this, which is Fabric Recipes Part 2. Thank you so much for getting us off to a great start here. We hope you will come back and join us for the second part of this two-part episode. Thank you. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters, and Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years.